as well as like I'm a 6th grader, so like I've got like more than double my lifetime left. So let's do that. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Joanna, I had a fear of the dark as I was afraid of the darkness of afterlife, so that didn't help either. That did not help either. I just wanted to remind you, for the people that were here whenever I said this, that my podcast probably won't be starting soon because I haven't bought any of the stuff that I need yet. I haven't set it up yet. We're still talking about doing it. So wait a few months, maybe I'll tell you in a class, if we do have class before summer, when it starts. So basically just keep an eye out. Is just what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's an important point, Corinne. You know, our final cause as human beings created in God's image and likeness is ultimately to be with Him in heaven. So that's something that shapes kind of being we are and shapes our actions. So we need to work toward that final cause. But anyway, great job today. Our reading for next week is going to be some excerpts from Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. So looking forward to that. Speaking of our final cause as human beings, I think that this work helps to explore that a little bit more. And yes, I haven't yet had a chance to check on the portals, Ivy, but I will, and I'll make sure to grade your assignments as well. So thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And again, great discussion on the 4 causes. And welcome to Standage and Ethics students. I will clear the board for you, but hope you're having a wonderful day today.
Who's creating a podcast?
Well, greetings, Mr. Zimmerman and all. It's wonderful to be with you. And I missed who it was, Anna Rose, but it does sound exciting. Well, we are running a little low on time, so we're going to make it kind of a quick mic test. So while I get the presentation up on the board, you guys would come on up and see how you're sounding today. The question is, what is your favorite kind of fruit? How about you, Estella?
I like strawberries, mango, and watermelon.
My favorite fruits, cucumber, watermelon, mango, tomato. Those are my favorites.
It really depends on my mood, but if I had to list the top 5, I would say like probably apples, plums, raspberries, mangoes, and maybe peaches.
My favorite fruit. Oh wait, never mind. That was our favorite juice, not favorite fruit. Or maybe it is something similar. But anyway, I think my favorite is number 1, orange. Number 2, watermelon. And I don't know what's for 3rd. I guess an avocado for 3rd, maybe.
It's really hard because fruit is very seasonal here in Idaho. So I'm hearing a lot of people talking about summer fruits, and that sounds really good, but I just can't have some of my favorite fruits right now. And one of my favorites is a pluot, which is a cross in between a plum and an apricot.
I think I like mangoes.
Yeah, we've got a lot of wonderful fruits on the table. It's sounding good. And let's see. So sorry, I was a little distracted getting my laptop plugged in here. But I know there's a
Nobody's
question,
telling
Kenneth. I think
right
you asked why
now,
do we turn
right.
off the private messaging? It tends to distract. It's better to just keep the public messaging because remember the chat box should just serve the oral forum. So our focus really should be coming to the mic. So good question. And Kenneth, I believe you're number one. My favorite fruit. That is an interesting question.
Don't forget to pray,
If you
by the
let me, I
way.
would probably somehow make it to the subject of Transformers. Let's see. My favorite fruit is probably bananas.
Thank you, Mom.
I know my favorite fruit is crazy.
Okay, this one's gonna be tricky. Okay, I like blueberries. I probably love mangoes, but I rarely get to actually eat mangoes. And I don't know when the last time I actually ate mangoes. I also like cherries, raspberries, peaches, plums, pineapple a little bit, and then there's a wild berry that I really like that I picked from the wild, and then it's a miniature plum that I picked from the wild, and then I like soft pears. What was any other ones? So I have a lot of favorite fruits, so yeah.
I'm not sure what my favorite fruit is.
All right, everybody's sounding good so far. Let's see, Anna Rose, I think that's an old hand if I'm not mistaken. So I think, Maria, you're up next.
My favorite fruit is watermelon and strawberries.
I know that fish isn't for everyone, and that is okay, Rowan.
I agree. Watermelons are delicious, but strawberries, apples, mangoes, and cherries, those are my favorite. Alright, I would say I really like mangoes. Those are pretty.
Why do we rarely eat mangoes?
Very good. And Elizabeth, how about you?
So my grandma lives in South Florida and she has a giant mango tree and it produces 1,000 mangoes during mango season. So sometimes we visit her and so her mangoes are really sweet because we pick them right off the tree.
I probably like bananas or starfish.
I'm not exactly sure what my favorite would be, but I really like strawberries and blood oranges.
I rarely ever have mangoes.
Oh, nice. Blood oranges are good too. So many good fruits. All right. Well, thank you guys. You are all sounding good. And we're going to grab Socrates and get started.
8.
Okay, so
We
welcome
get
to week
over
18 of our
mangoes
course on
a
ethics.
year.
We're taking chapter
Yes.
5 on the 5
Yellow.
parts of life. Here we go. So first, one of the statements from Adler: I cannot make a good life for myself if I spend the rest of my time in play and idling and omit leisuring in all its forms. Why is this the case? If play and idling produce pleasure and are even a necessary part of life, why can't these be sufficient for a good life? What do you think? Why would this not be enough if you spend just the rest of your life in play and idling? Anna Rose, what do you think?
If you just spend the rest of your life in play and idling, that would not help you be able to afford anything. And, well, kind of. If you really do if you are like have some kind of play job, if that's even possible, something like play or something, that'd probably be like, it's kind of hard to explain. Maybe like clay making or something you would consider play or something. But pretty much you couldn't have money from it. And then it would not be enough because someone needs to pray. They need to they also need to exercise. They need to sleep. They need to work to keep them there. Because if someone just played, they would never clean up their messes from playing, and then it would just become a clutter. And then they wouldn't be able to do so many things. So, yeah, play and idling would turn out to be a rectangular.
Okay, well, naturally, in order to have positives, you are going to need negatives. And if you just go out of your way to avoid the negatives as best as you can, you're eventually going to get bored and you're not going to appreciate the positives like you should naturally. You will always be in a loop in which you are constantly in your mind happy, but not physically happy. And in order to truly be happy, you have to be able to appreciate it and to realize that it is an important feeling and an important thing to appreciate. And if you just do not go out of your way to have a normal life and, well, normal kind of like a good life, if you don't go out of your way to do things in which there are high risks yet also high rewards, then you will never truly understand the importance of happiness. You will never really have it. And that is something that is really difficult to live without, because happiness is one of the most important things. And if you can't have that, then that is really difficult to just live your life with.
I think that although play and idling gives pleasure, that won't make you hardworking. And sometimes hardworking can also give you pleasure too. So that means so not only are you just playing and idling, although it gives pleasure, you're rejecting another type of pleasure. And even if it's hard work, when you're done, you still get a good feeling that I deserve this free time. So you're also rejecting another type of pleasure, and the pleasure of rewarding. Maybe I don't know what I call it, but you're rejecting the pleasure of being rewarded. And yes, idling does mean nothing. And if you look at it in a religious context, Jesus says not to idle, for that's being lazy, which is also a sin. And so that means not only are you rejecting probably two or maybe one type of pleasure, you're also committing sin. And if you do just play, it could also, it's pretty obvious that it can also prevent you from doing hard work, but it could also prevent you from doing prayer. There has to be a balance in prayer, leisuring, and play, and maybe a little bit of idling. And even earlier, I was thinking, am I idling just doing nothing here? As I was sitting on the couch, and I decided to go read the Bible because I think that would either be a bit leisuring.
Well, it is definitely important to not just leave idle and play. Like, having downtime helps you stay mentally ready, sort of. But you have to do some work, you could call work stuff, even to sustain yourself.
So the way my mom explained it to me is like leisure means like kind of a hobby, and like in the book they say like, oh, leisure is like the thing that makes you better, kind of. So like if you just like sit around all the time and just mess around, you don't really, and you don't do like your hobby type thing, you can't really get any better, is my understanding of the reading.
Great, very good points, you guys. And I think we have 2 more hands, Rowan and then Anna Rose.
Sorry, I didn't see that. I was number 1. Playing and idling for his pleasure, why can't be a peaceful good life? Because pleasure, because a good life is when you're doing a life full of you doing good things.
Idling is like wasting your time.
So like service or what you're supposed to do.
Because
And
you
playing
should
and
be using
idling
your time wisely.
isn't
Even resting
generally
out could be
good.
considered. Even
Well, maybe
sitting at the computer.
playing when you're like a little kid might be good for you. And like it is good, too. But it depends on what you mean by playing, because you could think there's several things. You could think, oh, running outside, or like running outside, with other people, with friends and stuff. Or you could think, oh, it's doing whatever you want. Or it could be, you could say it's playing video games for like 30 hours. But that's like if it's doing sort of physical things, then yeah, sure, it's good for you. But if it's not, then it's not actually good for you. So, and it's not always. So yeah, it doesn't do with things that you need to do. And so it's honest, like if you just did that, that'd be a bad life. It wouldn't be just like a, meh life. It would be a bad life. So yeah.
I agree that idling isn't good because there is certain that it's always good to know to use your time wisely. Even sometimes resting could be using your time wisely to keep yourself feeling good. But we should always be spending our time pretty wisely because, as you know, we don't know how long we're going to live. And life is only like a day of time. So, yeah. And also, I was wondering if this was a Catholic book because I couldn't quite tell.
Very good points all, and good question, Anna Rose. Adler did indeed convert and become Catholic, but it is actually my understanding that he wrote this prior to his conversion. So while this is kind of like pre-Catholic ideas at times, while there's not, to the best of my knowledge, there's nothing here that is contrary to the Catholic faith. He was not actually in the church when he wrote it. So that is something to keep in mind as you read. But he is writing about things that pertain to our nature, to human nature. And Johanna, I really liked the question you put in the chat box. And good job, good comments from your classmates as well on that question. Because right from a Catholic perspective, if a person does not believe in God, if a person is not even aware of the reality of sin, then would there be effects on that person if they live a life of sin? So since sin is contrary to our good as human beings, since it's a kind of contradiction of our nature, would it necessarily then have at least some effects? Even if the person's not really aware of it or couldn't put it into words, it is still going to have to suffer because of those choices. That's a very interesting point. But anyway, so great conversation and good thoughts too about play and idling versus leisure, and why leisuring must be part of our life if we want it to be a truly good life. Play and idling and play especially, has a very important role to play in human life. Idling, I think to some degree, just because of our fallen nature, is going to be part of every life at some point in time, but you guys are very wise to point out that it shouldn't be something that is given any sort of priority. But play should be given some kind of a priority because it actually has an important role, doesn't it? So let's go to the next slide because we're still going to be talking about this. What we're trying to do is find a good and healthy balance as we look at the different parts of life. What should we give priority to? Okay, so leisure is clearly necessary. And I think it was Kenneth who said that it was your understanding that leisure is something that builds up our good. I'm misquoting you, so feel free to correct me. There's something to that effect, and you are correct. That is Adler's purpose here, is to say that leisure is ordered to the good of the person. So whether it's spending time doing good reading, or maybe learning a musical instrument, or cooking or baking, or pursuing a wholesome hobby, or whatever, there are many different ways that we can leisure. Even study can be a form of leisure, right? Actually, another question, I was gonna state it, but I'm gonna ask it. Could even prayer, in some sense, be a kind of leisure, since it is ordered to our good? Something to think about. But anyway, so leisure is necessary. So can we flip it on its head, the question that we asked on the previous slide? Is it possible to make a good life if you pursue leisure at the expense of play and idling? So you eliminate all forms of play, all forms of idleness, and you focus only on leisure. Would that be sufficient for a good life? Adler says that's not possible. Okay, so why would that be the case? What are the fruits of leisure, and why isn't leisure on its own sufficient to make a good life? Okay, and we're going to start with Zachary.
I don't know. I think there is a form of leisure. Some of the faith is a form of leisure. Is the other thing there was
Let's see, Zachary. It looks like you are number one. Come on
something
up.
about work. It was not leisure work. It was the other work. The other one that was work. That one's kind of it because as a faith, we work.
I'm so sorry, Zachary. I'm guessing that you're probably having a connection issue. I just typed you a note in case the audio is not working for you. But if you can hear us, you are number one. So feel free to come on up.
But I wonder if praying.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry, Zachary. Well, welcome back. I hope that the audio is working better for you. So yeah, if you can hear us okay, feel free to come on up because you are indeed number one.
If
Yeah, I would say that
Oh dear, poor Zachary. So while he is reconnecting, let's go ahead and go to you, Marcos.
Marcos Polo, Marco Polo, Polo.
I think that it is impossible to have a life without any form of play or idling. Just because you would run out of sanity, the human body, it cannot really support the just work all the time, whether it's leisure work or subsistence work. Also, you wouldn't be able to go to church or something because you'd just be doing that kind of work. So that's another consideration.
Okay, I don't think that you can live a life without any form of play or like like having fun, pleasure. Like Marco said, you would lose your sanity. You would not be in a good mental state. You would not have a good mindset. You would not really understand the actual like fun aspect of playing and doing what you would like. You have to have and naturally you have to have a good balance of work and fun and doing nothing, because that is just how it is. That is just natural. And when you're a kid, you have school. When you're a kid, you have school, you have homework, and then after you do all of those important things, then you can have a little break to maybe go practice soccer, or maybe if you don't like sports, you practice let's say like theater. That's like a little form of like a nice break. That is what is supposed to happen. That is natural. We were not created to work constantly. We were not made just to always have money, always be on top of it, no matter what. We were made to genuinely just be happy. We were made in God's image, and God's image is not for us to have no fun. God's image is for us to live out our lives as best as we can, and in the ways that we like, not in anyone else's ways, not even by someone's ways like a king, in our ways. We deserve to have fun, and if you convince yourself that you don't, then that is an issue. But sometimes you can't stop that. Sometimes it is uncontrollable. That is okay, but it is not a good mindset to have.
I don't quite know if prayer would be considered under leisuring. Now, I think the kind of way we could know what prayer would be considered under is by taking prayer as a conversation with your Father, in a sense. If you could distinguish what a conversation would be under, then we can kind of get a guess on what it would be under. Leisuring kind of sounds like what it would be under, but I also think sometimes it can be under the other one, the work one. The other work one, not the leisure work, the other one. So, yeah, but I don't think idling would be good. So, yeah. So, I think that prayer might be under that, but I definitely think leisuring is kind of like, in a sense, helping you out, in a sense, because it can, not only is leisuring going to help you at that time, but it can help you in the long run, depending on what kind of leisuring you do. If you would do a leisuring that's not going to really help you at all anymore, compared to a leisuring like reading books about the saints, though that couldn't, maybe you wouldn't think that would just help. Maybe you'd think, okay, this was enjoyable now, but it would be in the long term, it would teach you the faith so you could teach others. It would help you learn how to become a saint yourself. And also, leisuring in the sense of learning music could help you because it could turn into a profit for you, or even help you yourself, because playing music is, I believe, a sort of therapy. So if I got that correct, it's very helpful though. So yeah, it will be helpful at that time, but also in the long term. So yeah.
Very good thoughts, you guys. And yes, Enro's good emphasis on the fact that leisure work is ordered to the long-term good as well as the short-term good. That's an important thing to keep in mind. Kenneth, looks like you're number one.
So I think that sorry. I think that leisure isn't enough to make a good life, because if spend all your time on leisure. You don't really have like anything like, let's say you just go to play like what's like just toss a ball around with friends. Like that's not exactly leisure, but that is like play. That's something you do for fun, just because you want to, because like you need to spend time with friends. If you don't spend time with friends, then you're gonna get really lonely and you're gonna die. Probably.
I don't think so.
So like I was saying the other two times, leisure is like work that you enjoy, that you like want to do, and sometimes it's something they pay you to do, and sometimes it's something that you're not paid to do. But like, you can't just do leisure, even though it's like a really good thing, because like you need to sleep and you need to pray and you need to like go to mass sometimes. So just doing work all the time wouldn't work out because you would have to sleep eventually. Also, it wouldn't be a good life either.
Thank you, Zachary. Good points. I'm so glad your connection is back. You're sounding very good indeed, and great thoughts there. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a very human life if we had nothing but leisure, right? If it was just leisure activity, just leisure work, and nothing else, it wouldn't be a very human life. So being able to play, to have that relaxation and that just opportunity to enjoy something just purely for the pleasure of it, nothing else, is actually a very important and natural part of our human experience. So leisure work is important, but not to the exclusion of play. So that begs the question, so how do we determine what is a healthy proportion? If we need to have plenty of leisure work, or a sufficient amount of leisure work, what is that quote unquote sufficient amount? I mean, can we measure it in terms of hours or in terms of the number of activities that fall under leisure work? And then how do we determine how much play is appropriate and is good? So just to read this line from Adler real quick, I cannot make a good life for myself if I idle away too many hours or overindulge in play so that little time is left for leisuring, much less than is spent in play or idling. So proportionately, how do you determine how much time should be spent in leisure work? And then how much time do we need to have available for play and perhaps even idling? Let's see, we're going to start with Zachary.
I think you should spend like maybe like half of the time you have reserved for these three categories of stuff for like leisure, and then the other half divided like, I don't know, 3/4 play and like 1/4 idling. So like an eighth idling and 3/8 play, and then like a half like leisure or something.
Why doesn't she take leisuring out? I mean, idling. I feel like you should balance. Now this is kind of a tough one because each person and your age will really depend on this. Now, what I mean by this is a child would probably at a very young age spend more time playing than leisuring. Now, as we get older, leisuring will become a lot more in school than playing. So, by the time you turn an adult, leisuring and playing will kind of fare out, I guess. So, leisuring, I think, kind of is like, sometimes it depends on how much leisuring you're doing. Like if you do harp and piano, and then you read you read history, and then you read science. Now that might take maybe 2 hours. Now if you were doing less leisuring, like you only did harp and history, then it would only take like an hour. So it probably depends on how many things, but I think a good balance might be 2 hours of leisuring, unless you're a kid, because normally you do a lot more leisuring because you're doing school. But as an adult, I think leisuring is normally like 2 hours, that definitely is always different for each person. But then play, I don't think idling should be at all in there because that's just like wasting your time. But playing should probably take I don't know if there's really a time for these things because it really is different for each person. But maybe 2 hours or an hour or something like that. Maybe an hour. It's kind of hard to tell that because each person is very different. But it's kind of hard to tell. But basically, you need to make sure you have a balance. That's pretty much the only way you can say it because someone in a convent might spend different time than a child or something like that. So it's kind of very different for each person.
Anna Rose made a good point about different ages needing different things. If you're a child, let's say like elementary school, you naturally really won't have that much like schoolwork or like leisure for you to do. So you would naturally just spend more time playing, which is okay because once again, you have very little that you truly need to do. So I would say that as long as you get everything that is important done first, then that is okay. Then it's good to play. It's good to idle. It's good to do everything that brings joy. Once you finish what is important, you cannot just immediately go into having fun and like doing all of these like things. You shouldn't be going to the park before doing what you need to be doing. You should not just choose that rather than what is important. I would say that for everything. You need to go to school. You need to you need to focus on your education because nothing is worth more than your education. No item, no person, really nothing. Because your education is like, it determines your future. If you graduate college, depending what college you go to, your degree, what you study in, that determines your job and your future. So it is important that you stay on top of that, especially at a young age, because even if your grades from elementary and middle school do not really count towards high school, it is important to know the good balance. It is not good balance. It is important to know how to manage and stay on top of it because it is important. It really does determine your future, especially if you don't practice a religion and you don't believe in any God. Then once again, you need to spend more time doing that because it is important. It's not the most important thing, but it is one of them.
We are hoping.
So I think that in order to make a good balance, and instead of putting more time into your gameplay and idling, not idling, you have to. I'm gonna say what I think would be a good balance, even if one gets more time than the other. I think a good balance is for you to work hard, even to work very hard, not too hard, that becomes unhealthy for you. Like you have to stop eating and stop drinking and stop sleeping, because as I said before, the human body is the temple of the Holy Spirit and your soul too. So you gotta take care of that. So enough to make your body okay with working. But even if you don't want to do it, that doesn't mean you should go spend your time playing idling. Because sometimes you'd have to do it due to external influences, like if you have a job and you have to have a deadline to it, to your work. So you should keep going, but not until the point that your body starts to decay and function down. But you don't want to overwork yourself by excluding playing idle. So, but you don't want to overplay and over idle. So if you ever feel I need to do this work, but I'm just gonna keep playing, you shouldn't do that. Play when you're done with your work, or you feel like if it's too much, then you should have a break. that's what I feel like the correct balance is for this. And this is what so I am agreeing with. So that's my reason why there should still be a balance, but leisure work has a little more time.
Excellent thoughts, guys. And Kenneth, you are number one. Kenneth, can you hear us? And if you can, you are number one. So I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this question. It's a very important question of how do we determine a healthy proportion of activities, especially when we're looking at leisure work on the one hand and play on the other. I'm so sorry, Kenneth. It looks like maybe you're having some connection issues. I'm not sure if you can hear us. If you can, feel free to type a note in the chat box. But yeah, let me give you one more chance in case you are there. Feel free to come on up. Okay, I'm so sorry, Kenneth. I'm guessing you are having some troubles, some connection issues, but I hope that will work for you shortly. If you can hear us, feel free to let me know in the chat box. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to hear your thoughts in just a moment. But anyway, good thoughts, you guys. And I just wanted to especially underline or underscore what you guys have been saying about how it depends on the person and things like age, but also the individual person, because some people are very much ordered to certain forms of leisure work. Like you have people who honestly enjoy studying, for example, like they're very studious just by nature. So someone like that might be able to spend even several hours a day in study, and it will do them great good. It really would truly be leisure work for them, not subsistence work, but leisure work. But if you look at that one person and say, wow, you know, let's say 8 hours a day in study, and that is excellent for this person. Therefore, everyone should spend 8 hours a day 8 hours a day in study, because that will be good for them. Well, no, not everybody is going to actually benefit. It will become something, even something akin to drudgery for some people, right? So we need to look at the individual person. We need to use prudence and determine what kind of leisure work is best fitted to a person and how much. I think it was Anna Rose who mentioned, like, for example, little children aren't going to have as much leisure work because they're very small. So they're going to spend a lot more time in play just naturally. In a sense, that almost is their leisure work, right? In playtime. So anyway, great thoughts. And yet, any final comments? So Kenneth, if you are there, I'd love to give you one more chance to come on up. But if not, we'll turn to Anna Rose.
Oh, sorry. Unfortunately, I think like you should spend like at least 60% of your time probably leisuring at least, and like that leaves 40% for just playing and idling. So like 40% of the time you should, 30% of the time, or 35% of the time you should be spending playing, and the rest you could maybe spend like 5 to 10% of the time idling. Maybe not even that. Because idling is important, but it's not like you're just laying around trying to do nothing.
I think that I was wondering, what do we mean when we say, you said something like if someone had, if everyone was to do 8 hours or something like drudgery or something, that, what does that mean?
Oh, good question. So yeah, I was just using as an example. Suppose that there's a person who found that study was a very effective form of leisure work for them. So it did them great good. It was very profitable for them, and they found pleasure in it. So perhaps for that person, it really would be good to spend 8 hours a day in some form of study, on, you know, reading or whatever. But we could not, or we ought not, to say, therefore, because it's a good thing for this one person, everybody should spend 8 hours a day and study, and that will be good for them. And so, yeah, so what I said was for some people, that actually might be a form of drudgery. So it's just overwhelming work that is not actually doing good for them just because it's not fitted or suited to their interests and their talents and gifts. So anyway, yeah, that was just the example that came to mind for me. Anna Rose, does that help?
Yeah, thank you. I kind of feel like when we mention and we think idling, we can sometimes maybe consider something that's not really idling to be idling, and idling is not really great in itself. For example, when we are resting, that could be a very good thing because it's helping our body. Or when we're watching something good quality, that could help us. Those things aren't exactly idling. Those aren't idling if they're being good and using your time wisely as God would want you to. Now, idling is kind of, in a sense, not using your time wisely and just kind of doing something that something you don't really need to do, and it's kind of just worthless.
I have to get around for a father-daughter dance today. I'm gonna have to leave class a little early if you don't mind.
Oh, thank you for letting me know, Elizabeth. No problem. I hope you have a wonderful time. That sounds so exciting. And yeah, I can't believe the lateness of the hour. We actually don't have too much time left, students. So I want to make sure we get to one or two other things. I'm just going to touch on this. We're not going to actually pursue the question here. But the question is pertaining to leisure work as the primary human activity, which is worth thinking about. So again, unfortunately, we're not going to spend time on this question, but it is worth thinking about. Is it, in fact, very natural and very human to seek that greatest good, the greatest good and the kind of growth that we need in order to attain that good? All right, so this is what I want to turn to next, because this is a fun question, also an important one to think about. What kinds of activities are these? Studying, singing, listening to music, driving, washing dishes, cooking, praying, flying a helicopter, painting a work of art, going to the doctor, reading a book, playing baseball, sending an email, carrying a heavy package for a friend, swimming. So feel free to just pick a couple that jump out at you, and you're going to go ahead and analyze it and assess it and tell us, is this play? Is this idling? Sleep? Subsistence work? Leisure work? Could it be more than one? Are any of these perhaps more than just one category, belong to more than just one category of activity? All right, and we're going to start with Zachary. Come on up.
I'm gonna do cooking, and I think that could be both leisure work and like sleep, because sleep is supposed to be like what's necessary for life, right? And like listening to music could be like idling, and yeah, just idling, I guess. And sending an email would be subsistence work.
I would say that singing can be both leisure work and play, because some people have a job for singing. Let's say like Broadway actors, they have to sing and act because it is their job. They work with that. That is what they do. And like pop singers, I think Taylor Swift, that's one of her jobs. I'm thinking of some more people. Like people like that, they work with that. That is their job. Same with painting a work of art. Because that can both be leisure work and also play. My sister draws for fun, but she also does a bunch of. She also does works of art. She had a painting that took 5 months, and she sold it for 105. I think it was 135. But that I would consider singing and painting to be both kinds of both leisure work and playing. And I would also say that for reading a book, because some books are really necessary to read, nonfiction books, and also, sometimes you just want to read a book, like Lord of the Rings. You can read that for a class, or you can just read that for fun because you are really interested in the series, or you just want to study it. Those are the types of things that can happen. They're not only one or the other.
Studying can be leisure work, or it can be subsistence work. I think I said that a tiny bit wrong. And music can be leisure work, or it can, I wonder if it'd be considered play, or does that really have to mean physical play? Or if you're doing something not so great, then it could be considered idling, which is not good. And then cooking can be considered sleeping, as someone said, which I kind of agreed, which I agree. And then it can also be considered leisuring, not leisure work. It can be, well, it could. Yeah, it could be considered leisuring work if you're just doing it for fun. It could also be considered I can't say that right. Suspicion work. I can't say it. Okay, what I mean by that is it could be sold and then be worth money. So swimming, it could be playing. And it could be leisure work. And it also, I wonder if it could be suspicion work. I'm saying it wrong all the time. What I mean by that is if you like use it to maybe win contests for money or something like that. So yeah, a lot of these can be more than one, depending on how you use it.
All right. So, I will pick flying a helicopter, swimming, and driving. So let's start with driving because it's first. I would list driving as kind of, to me it would seem like play because it looks like driving a giant go-kart, except there's like a bajillion rules. I would list it as a play, but also a subsistence work. So work, because you're getting, it's a way of getting somewhere, but it's also kind of maybe fun. So maybe leisure work. Flying a helicopter, I would name my list as subsistence work, because
Stop. Start on topic for the rest.
Well, because it's work, and I don't know, I feel like flying a helicopter would be kind of scary. And then swimming would be play and maybe leisure work, but mainly play because swimming is really fun. And do people get swimming pools so that they can work, or so that they can swim because it's like super fun? Mainly because it's fun. So yeah. So I'm gonna say
I think it also can.
Well, I
Hey,
guess
I thought of another thing.
Steph
That
said
my swimming could be
it is an
considered-
exercise,
should be considered.
but for me, it's just fun. So
Hey, I realized that I didn't.
Like a couple people have been saying, all of these things, what group it goes into: play, idling, sleep, leisure work, subsistence work. It really depends on the person. Like for some people, I don't know, driving could be like
really fun for them. So that could be like play, or it could be subsistence work because they're a taxi driver or something and they're just driving for money and that's their job. Or even like swimming. Some people find that fun. And my brother actually hated swimming class for a long time. And it was like one of his worst things to go to ever. So it all depends on the person.
I forgot to add to one of mine.
For me, right now, I'm going to answer is what kind of activity is praying? I don't know. I'm going to say praying is leisure work. Because leisure work, as in the chart, says that leisure, let me find the chart. Anyway, I remember that leisure work is optional, which may also have a transitive results or extrinsic to the activity. And you have an option of when you can pray and when you don't want to pray. For example, do you want to pray while you're cooking? You might get distracted or not need your prayer. So it's optional if you want to pray right now or later. Now, second, prayer is another thing another way they describe leisure work is that leisure cannot injure or destroy the human body. Now, prayer can actually, if you ask, prayer is just asking God for prayers, asking or thanking God, which may help your body too. So football isn't leisure. Yeah, it may be because it's optional if you want to do football or not. And you could actually help your body. You could help your body with exercise, unless you go into extreme heat conditions for playing football. Anyway, so I think praying is leisure work, and just as a bonus thing, I think listening to music is play because you can play music.
I forgot that in swimming, I think it also can be considered sleeping because it can be considered as exercise, or to keep you healthy. I have to admit, I think prayer can also be a mandatory thing. Like we have, as a Catholic, we got to go to liturgy on Mass on Sunday. I call it liturgy because I'm Byzantine Catholic. So, whoopsie, sorry. But yeah, so I think it also can be considered a mandatory thing. But a lot of prayer is not mandatory, but Mass for sure is mandatory. Unless you are sick.
Wow, good comments, you guys. And yeah, there's a lot of overlap as we look at these different forms of activity. And several things are not just play or just sleep or just subsistence work or whatever. Also, several things could be belong to one category or another, depending on how the person approached it. I can't remember who it was now that was saying, if you drive because you love it, it's just really fun. It might be a form of play for you. But if you drive because it's part of your living, you drive a truck or I don't know, maybe you drive for Uber or something like that, then you might view it as more like subsistence work, right? This is my job. This is how I earn a living. So our intention actually affects the form of activity in some way. How are we approaching this? And listening to music, that was also another interesting one, because I know that some of you said that, well, that would sort of be a form of idling. On the other hand, could it be a form of play? Could it even be a form of leisure work? If you're listening to very beautiful music, is that actually doing good for you? Wonder, something to think about. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time here. But yeah, any final quick thoughts, Anna Rose, before we wrap up class?
There can be some really good music, especially, what is it? Oh, the Gregorian chant that actually can really help your body. So, yeah.
Great example, Anna Rose. You know, I was actually thinking of the Gregorian chant as well. Yeah, it does one so much good in so many ways, just to spend some time listening to that beautiful music. So anyway, great thoughts, you guys. And we are gonna turn to the homework slide here real quick. There we go. So next week, we're going to read chapter 6, what should one do about earning a living? So we're going to zero in on subsistence work. How should we approach earning a living? Is there a best way to do it, or a very good way to do it that is in our best interest, so that we can really lead a good life? So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the reading. I'm excited to discuss it with you next week. And again, well done today. Great work, great discussion. And I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend ahead.
Bye. Thank you for class. See you next week.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you for class. Have a blessed weekend, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for class. See you next week. God bless. Amen.
Bye. Thank you for class. God bless. Amen.
Hi, thanks so much for class.
Shipping, kipping.